Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Global Food Security Summit and the launch of the British government's white paper. Will you please join me in giving a very, very warm welcome indeed to the President of Somalia. Now, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in a few moments, the Prime Minister will arrive and will launch the white paper and also launch and speak at this Global Food Security Summit. And I remind you that we're all gathered here today, and I look around the room and I see many great experts and people who strongly support what we're trying to do today. I remind you that in a world where there is plenty of food, it is obscene that children die from starvation in large numbers, and particularly in East Africa, from where the President has joined us. So the mission that we have today, the work we are trying to do, is extremely important in advancing a common agenda which so many of us hold dear. But in particular also, we have the launch of the white paper, a white paper drawn from contributions from 50 countries around the world, hugely across British civil society, university, academia. I believe that it is a real effort to try and do two things. Firstly, to ensure that we get these SDGs back on track when at this halfway point they are so far from it. Secondly, that we focus on climate finance, tackling climate change, the Bridgetown agenda, the words of Mia Mottley, who spoke to the entire Foreign Office in this room just a few months ago, the Bridgetown agenda to turn billions into trillions, which is so important if we are to meet our climate targets and deliver, particularly for the poorest people in the world, who so often, if not always, suffer first and hardest from the effects of climate change. So, in a few minutes, the Prime Minister, as I say, will launch that white paper. We're not going to give you any copies, I'm afraid, until you leave, because it is such an interesting and fabulous document. For the Brits who are here, you'll understand that it's like reading the Sun newspaper without the pictures. So we're going to keep it for you, but give you a copy later today when you leave. And I hope very much that you will think that it is a piece of work that really moves the dial on development and shows the different ways of doing development now. And of course, this Global Food Security Summit is an example of the different way in which we do development now. So I'm waiting for a signal, and I think I'm receiving the signal. I'm not receiving the signal. No. So during the course of the day, we will, of course, and I'll say a few words about this in a moment, we will have the 4 sessions, and I will say something about that, as I say, before Her Excellency speaks. But now it gives me the greatest pleasure. Will you please welcome the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak.
Good morning. Mr. President, ladies, gentlemen, welcome to the Global Food Security Summit. I'd like to start by thanking our summit partners, Somalia, the UAE, the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But I'd also like to thank my good friend Andrew Mitchell for his incredible work, not just on today, but also for the International Development White Paper, which we're proud to be launching. Thank you all for your participation and support for today. We live in a dangerous world, a time of growing threats, strategic competition and conflict. Now, many of these challenges, like the war in Ukraine, have a direct impact on the poorest in the world. Others threaten to draw attention away from their plight, putting at risk the vital progress made over recent years. Now, with this white paper, we're answering those challenges, changing our approach to deliver in a changing world. Because we know that you don't lead merely with strength, but with compassion. So we're going further to help the poorest and support those suffering in humanitarian crises. We're not just applying our aid budget to deliver results on the ground, but also Britain's expertise in development and our leadership in science, technology and innovation. And we'll do all of this not by acting alone or seeking to dictate the way forward, but through building even deeper partnerships around the world based on mutual respect. It's only by working together that we will get the Sustainable Development Goals back on track. And that starts with redoubling our efforts to deliver the goal on zero hunger. It can't be right that today, in 2023, almost 1 billion people across the world regularly do not have enough to eat, that millions face hunger and starvation, and over 45 million children under 5 are suffering acute malnutrition. In a world of abundance, no one should die from lack of food, and no parent should ever have to watch their child starve. Now, I'm proud of everything the UK is doing to provide immediate relief. We're one of the top 4 donors to United Nations crisis response. We've doubled our aid for Palestinian civilians with an additional £30 million. We're clear that Israel has the right to defend itself. It has been attacked in the most brutal manner possible by an enemy that hides itself in hospitals. It must also act within international humanitarian law. The situation on the ground is truly tragic and getting worse. We're pressing hard for unhindered humanitarian access in Gaza and for urgent and substantive humanitarian pauses to get in food, fuel and medicine, because the suffering of innocent civilians must end. We're also leading the way in helping Ukraine get its grain out through the Black Sea and into the hands of those in need. But because the scale of the global hunger crisis is so staggering, today we're going further, providing up to £100 million now for the worst hit, particularly across East Africa, the Sahel and Afghanistan, and in countries like Malawi, which are reeling from climate-related cyclones and drought. Yet, as everyone here knows, simply responding in the wake of a crisis is not enough. Climate change, conflict and population rise mean ever greater challenges to food supplies. So we need a fundamental shift in the way that we approach food security, with a focus on long-term solutions to stop food crises before they start. And we need to harness the full power of science and technology to ensure supplies are resilient to threats like conflict, drought and floods. That's why the UK is working to deliver lasting solutions. And we're doing so in 4 important ways. First, by preventing the worst forms of child malnutrition. We played a leading role in the design of the Child Nutrition Fund, which supports vital supplies of life-saving food. And today I'm pleased to announce that we're building on that with a further £16 million and helping to bring in more funding, including from our fantastic philanthropic partners. Second, we're using technology to anticipate and prevent food security crises. Together with our partners, we're applying AI to model the impact of climate change on agriculture so that we can find ways to avoid future crises. And we know just how effective this can be. Our work with the government of Somalia helped them avert famine last year. And today I'm pleased to announce that we will help Somalia avoid future crises with up to £100 million of future support, enabling thousands of communities to manage water supplies, adapt their farming, and increase their resilience to droughts, floods, and other climate shocks. Third, we're supporting developing countries to build more sustainable and resilient food systems. We helped set up the Global Agriculture and Food Security Programme to crowd in public and private sector finance. And now we're driving reform of development banks, stretching their balance sheets even further to unlock more resources for food security. And that includes UK guarantees, which are releasing $6 billion of the bank's resources for development in countries in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. Finally, we're applying our leadership in science to this crisis. As the country that over the last few years led the development of the world's first and second malaria vaccines, we're also driving scientific advances in food security which benefit millions globally, as well as supporting our brilliant farmers here at home. We've already helped develop crops that are drought-resistant and even richer in vitamins, now feeding 100 million people across Africa. And we're going further, launching a new UK CGIAR Science Centre to drive cutting-edge research on flood-tolerant rice, disease-resistant wheat, and much more. These innovations will reach millions across the poorest countries, as well as improving UK crop yields and driving down food prices. And in conclusion, this is the difference that Britain makes. Using all the expertise and tools at our disposal, helping people now and for the long term. But we cannot do this alone. And that's what this summit is all about. And it's why our approach is all about partnership. With your help, we can get the Sustainable Development Goals back on track, deliver a world of zero hunger, and transform millions of lives for years to come. Thank you, and have a great summit.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister, for launching our summit today. And it now gives me the greatest possible pleasure to welcome to the podium the President of Somalia.
Your Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and pleasure to stand in front of you today and share with you very, very concise stand of Somalia and the realities. On behalf of the Federal Republic of Somalia, I would like to thank His Majesty's government for organizing this important and timely event that brings the world stage the magnitude of food security challenges that continue to affect my country and other countries around the globe. The persistence of food insecurity is due to a variety of factors, including climate shocks, heavy reliance on increasingly expensive food imports, global disruption of supply chain, and weak infrastructure. We therefore need a multifaceted approach that intertwines investment in peace and security, climate-adaptive technology and infrastructure, financial inclusion, as well as robust economic and trade policies. I'm glad today to hear from His Excellency the Prime Minister of His Majesty's government that many of those issues which UK has been contributing a lot will further put in more investment on those areas that brings the approach successful. Somalia has been struggling to provide the factors that make Somalia always remain in a food crisis situation. Somalia is a rich country. We have more per capita arable land than many other African countries and global countries, but unfortunately the circumstances that were hindering Somalia are some of which are still there. We are very much grateful the same that our global partners and the African Union, continental partner in the African Union has helped Somalia to move away from this, particularly the security issue. The Somali people has decided to address those challenges, among which is the security and the state building. Institutions that were not there for a long time now started to emerge. Capacitating those institutions and financing their activities are another crucial important which we have. In Somalia, we are ambitious in our goals and we are developing sound policy solutions across the multifaceted areas, beginning with peace and security. Since June 2022, Somali National Army has been able to partner with the local forces and the global partners in an unprecedented offensive that has recovered from more than 70 towns and villages from Al-Shabaab in the southern and the central federal member states of Somalia. These newly recovered areas are home to some of the richest farming lands in the country. The Somali government has started a stabilization program after the liberation, which has two important aims. One is to stabilize the situation and provide services to the people who has been lacking those services for more than a decade now. And the second is making the transition program as a bridge that moves the Somali people from the humanitarian situation into a development situation. It's not easy to jump from the humanitarian situation immediately to development, so we need that transition, and the stabilization program that Somalia has developed and the international partners, among which the United Kingdom is one of the major partners supporting Somalia to provide the stabilization program work in it. Number two is the climate adaptive technology and infrastructure. According to a recent study by the African Development Bank, Somalia has the highest resource potential of any African nation for onshore wind power and could generate between 30 to 45,000 megawatts of wind power. We also have 300 days of sunshine annually. So the solar power is another major opportunity in Somalia. With sufficient financing, we can invest in climate-resilient infrastructure in critical sectors such as the renewable energy, water catchment systems, regenerative agricultural practices, and feeder roads within the agricultural land. Number three, the financial inclusion. Access to finance is a key, and we are also working on making affordable loans accessible to the agricultural sector to encourage further investment in the local production. Somalia has adopted a economic model of private-driven economy, and the government will provide the necessary legal framework and the conducive and attractive environment for the investors. Many legislations have been passed in recent times in the Somali legislative chambers that protects and attracts and helps the investors locally and internationally. To this end, we have been working towards accession into the East African community, which will be finalized by the end of this month, as we hope, allowing Somalia to access greater market from the Atlantic Ocean to the Indian Ocean. A huge market for us, and the Somali people are very much entrepreneurial and business people. In conclusion, to mitigate the potential for a famine in Somalia, the international community, especially the United States, the United Kingdom, the European Union, and many more partners, among which is the United Arab Emirates, have provided a huge amount of resources to avert the famine in Somalia. As rightly His Excellency, the Prime Minister said, Somalia was on the brink of famine when we came to the office last year, and with these supports and the organization my government did, we averted that famine. The country is not in risk of famine now, but the factors that contributed to the famine are still there. So we are struggling with that, and the stabilization program is one of the cases that we intended to stop the famine. Millions of lives have been saved with that generosity. However, given the current climate changes, we know that without similar levels of investments that can keep agro-pastoral communities intact, health, and able to sustain themselves economically, we will continue to witness food insecurity and human suffering that entails for generations. The larger scale investment in energy system and transport infrastructure will require funds from multilateral and bilateral financing institutions, and Somalia has developed the necessary institutions to work with and the necessary legislations and acts to help. However, At the current rates, African countries pay more than 5 times the interest rates than many other parts of the world. Handouts did not help and will not help in the future. Did not help in the past and will not help in the future. But financing at a fair rate in the economic uplifting of the people is what helps a lot. Finally, to be successful, we need a collective effort of governments, international organizations, and private sector to deliver for the most vulnerable societies, among which Somalia is one. The African continent in general is working hard to remove the barriers for economic development, like establishing the Continental Free Trade Area, whereby huge development and access to the markets will be within the African continent. In the East African region, where the climate change is affecting a lot, millions of livestock died, a lot of children dies, the agricultural land is transforming. So, and again, here is where, again, another investment is necessary. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please thank our principal guests as they depart this morning, the President and the Prime Minister. Now, just before I call Her Excellency to the stage, can I just remind you of what we're doing today? This is our plenary session. We're going to hear from a number of outstanding speakers who've joined us, and then we will move to 2 sessions this morning after a break, and then after lunch 2 further sessions before we come to the final plenary, which will be addressed by the Foreign Secretary and former Prime Minister David Cameron. And the 4 sessions, which is the meat of the matter today, are ending preventable deaths and using science and technology, sessions 1 and 2 this morning. And then this afternoon, the humanitarian aspects of food insecurity, tackling food crises. And the final session, building climate resilient and sustainable agriculture and food. So I hope you will feel that we are really getting to the heart of the problem we're trying to solve today during those 4 sessions, demonstrating that while money is important, and we will be announcing through today a number of financial advances and money from the British taxpayer on these various aspects, but above all that it's science and technology, invention, research, academia. These are the sort of aspects of progress which we need to focus on and which I think we will throughout today. So will you now please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Her Excellency, the Climate Minister from the UAE, of course, the hosts of the forthcoming COP. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. I want to also thank you, His Excellency Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, and also the Right Honorable Prime Minister Rishi Sunak for being here and gracing us with their inspirational words today. I also thank you, Your Excellency, Minister Andrew Mitchell, for your kind words and for inviting us here for a very, very important event. It's also, I also want to thank our partners as well, the Children's Investment Fund Foundation and also the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for their support and also for their partnership. So today's discussion comes at a very opportune time. We're just 10 days away from hosting COP28 in Dubai, and we are so looking forward to welcoming the world to deliver a truly inclusive and solutions-oriented COP that benefits all of humanity. As we further discuss our collective concerns around food security today, I'm delighted that the UAE's COP28 presidency is now building on top of the momentum of action for food and climate agenda, which was firmly set on course by the UK at COP26, and then accentuated and further accelerated in Egypt at COP27. And of course, to make our own contribution to the cause, our goal has been to really elevate this agenda and place it at the very heart of the presidential action agenda. And you will all be pleased to know that the program of the COP28 presidency actually starts with a high-level session on food and climate on the very first day. So we've gotten food on center stage on the very first day. And of course, every day after that, there will be at least one presidency-hosted event related to agriculture and food systems, with the program reaching a crescendo on December 10th, with a full day for food, agriculture, and water. So, of course, we'll be looking at the risks and challenges that you are all very familiar with today, but our focus will be really to highlight the solutions and the opportunities presented by food systems and their interactions with our precious planet. We need to identify these, scale them up, and of course ensure that we are able to empower these solutions that we have. And what I think is always so important is to look at how we can empower the farmers and all of us as consumers, as power agents of change. We simply need to find the will to work collectively and creatively to unleash our potential. Now, over the past months, I know many of you in the room here today, you know that I am the COP28 Food Systems Lead, and I've been working and engaging with many of you in how we can make sure that food systems play and how we can work together towards solutions that help achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement, as well as the UN Sustainable Development Goal of Zero Hunger. And when I asked you all, what would success mean for you for food systems at COP28? Of course, you can imagine I got a lot of different answers. But two common denominators were, we need a global framework, and the second is we need political will of countries. And so off to work we went, and we worked together, and just 4 months ago in Rome at the UN Food Systems Summit, we unveiled the COP28 Food Systems and Agriculture Agenda. Now, this agenda, developed together with many of you in this room today, really is a framework to give food and agriculture the prominence they deserve in the climate agenda and in the COP process. The agenda aims to overcome the challenges in our food systems in 4 simple ways. Number 1, galvanizing national leadership. Number 2, involving non-state actors. Number 3, bolstering and boosting innovation. And number 4, scaling up finance. Now, to address the first point, as a global community, I've been working with many of you, of course I and my team in the ministry and also at the COP28 presidency. We've been working with many of you in drafting a declaration. Now, this declaration has gone through several versions and was also informed by more than 25 consultations and involving hundreds of agriculture and food systems stakeholders in every region of the world. And so, the leaders' level Emirates Declaration on Sustainable Agriculture, Resilient Food Systems and Climate Action, I know the name's long, but this is what the partners wanted, was finalized just 3 weeks ago with the intent to mobilize national leadership and extend a global call to action. So the declaration has been sent to all countries, inviting all heads of state and government to endorse. It basically lays out a vision for collective and global action in 5 key areas: adaptation, food security and nutrition, livelihoods, food and water systems integration, and shifting patterns of production and consumption to more sustainable approaches. So I take this opportunity to remind you all, and also urge as well all heads of state and government to stand with the UAE and the dozens of countries that have already endorsed the declaration over the last weeks. We invite you to add your voice to support by endorsing the Emirates Declaration and join us on stage as partners during the high-level session on food and climate on the first day of COP28 on December 1st. Now, to address the second point, on the food agenda, we aim to bring, of course, the non-state actors, many of them also here with us today, including businesses, farmers, and producers organizations, together to drive progress across production, consumption, and of course, food loss and food waste. Now, for the third point of the food agenda, it will be about harnessing the power of innovations to help us to adapt to the impacts of climate change and reduce the emissions caused by it. Now, we in the UAE know all too well how powerful this tool is because despite our harsh climate, we are successfully growing a variety of vegetables and fruits, and more recently, lots of different varieties of berries all year round in closed agriculture environments right in the middle of the desert. And boy, they're tasty. So it's been such an eye-opener for us that we have partnered with the United States and have launched a global innovation platform called the Agriculture Innovation Mission for Climate, known also as AIM4C, or AIM for Climate. And this basically harnesses the power of innovations and aims to increase and accelerate investments in climate-smart agriculture by 2025. Now, so far, we have more than 500 partners on board. We have more than $13 billion of committed investments. And this has been now over the last 2 years, and it's growing. And there will be more announcements at COP28. Finally, for point 4 of the food agenda, we're really urging nations to scale up finance. And I want to thank the UK government for some of the announcements just made. This is what we need. We need countries to step up and support. So first of all, of course, look into what they need to do these transformations, but also to support others. I also want to share some feedback with all of you, and please take this as constructive feedback. The food that has been offered at COP so far have been far from what we're talking about all the time. And so it's really important that we walk the talk. And so what my team and I thought, before COP28, why don't we bring in all the chefs, suppliers of food, catering companies who will be supplying the food at COP28 to a workshop to make sure that what they're cooking in the kitchen is more 1.5 degrees aligned. And it's been it was such an amazing workshop because not only was it fun, but to get the chefs actually understanding how powerful they are in the choices they make and how powerful that is on the food systems. So we hope that this legacy will now live on, and before any future COPs that there will be this workshop. And I also hope that when you come to Dubai and you try the food there, it may not be perfect, but at least you know that we're trying to make sure that all the food you get, and there will be plenty, and there will be plenty of coffee and tea and water as well, that you are all nourished and you know that the food has been made, making sure that we've got climate conscious actions in mind. Thank you. Finally, I want to say, or I want to end by saying this, the world is not in a good place right now. And so I think it's even more important that we, as the global community, really do everything we can, because we see ourselves as responsible global citizens, and I think it's in our hands to make COP28 a success. I think we owe it to our children, because it's their lives that are at stake. And I kindly ask you all to come to COP28 with hope, with a positive mindset, action-oriented thinking, and for me, it's really important that we make COP28 a beacon of hope and a beacon of inspiration for everyone, because the world really needs it right now. Thank you so much.
Well, I thank the Minister very much indeed for those remarks. We all want to wish her the very best of luck together with her colleagues as she hosts this brilliant conference. There will be many of my colleagues coming, including the Foreign Secretary and the Prime Minister and, of course, His Majesty the King. And I hope very much that together as the world community we can respond, as you said in your remarks. I'd like to offer my heartfelt congratulations for the Emirates Declaration on Resilient Food Systems, Sustainable Agriculture and Climate Action. Building on the work of the UK in COP26 and on COP27, this declaration boldly now takes food systems transformation to the highest level of political attention, which is right where it needs to be. So I'm proud to announce that the Prime Minister has confirmed British endorsement of the Emirates Declaration, and we strongly encourage others to join, as Your Excellency said. And now it gives me the greatest possible pleasure to invite Chris Hahn to the stage, the head of CIFF, the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, and one of the co-sponsors of this great event today. Chris.
Thank you very much to the UK government and Minister Mitchell for bringing us together today. I founded the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, or CIFF, 20 years ago to serve the world's most impoverished children. Malnutrition is the biggest and most deadly condition which these children suffer from. 45%, or nearly 1 in 2 under 5 child deaths, are directly and indirectly due to malnutrition. Deaths attributed to many other illnesses would not occur except due to weakened immune systems due to malnutrition. A study by the Gates Foundation showed that a 30% case fatality rate for pneumonia fell to 0.3% when cases of malnutrition and pneumonia together were excluded. So the true scale of the impact of malnutrition is massively underestimated. More than 45 million children worldwide suffer from wasting, a deadly form of malnutrition. In addition, chronic malnutrition also leads to widespread stunting in low-income countries, where as many as a third or a half of children are physically and mentally harmed for life as a result of stunting. As we've heard, climate change is making the problem of malnutrition worse every year. In Africa and many poor countries in Asia, the Middle East, as well as in higher-income countries, the soils are drying out due to structural drought exacerbated by extreme weather and unpredictable seasons. This is continuously driving up the cost and price of food, so that often people in Africa and other low-income countries are forced to barely survive by eating only 1 meal per day. In low-income countries, this is creating millions of desperate climate change migrants and refugees, which are being displaced and suffer malnutrition as their lands become less and less capable of supporting agriculture. So supporting aggressive action against climate change is one of the most important long-term strategies against malnutrition. This is why CIFF is one of the world's largest funders on climate change, spending $250 million per year on climate change-related grants. But governments everywhere need to step up now and do much more to tackle the climate emergency before it's too late. To address malnutrition, there are proven solutions which are very cheap and save lives. We must both treat and prevent malnutrition. It's not either or. On prevention, we must go to the root causes of malnutrition. Key strategies include making contraceptives available for all unmet need. There are an estimated 1 in 2 unplanned pregnancies around the world, which represents 30 million unplanned pregnancies in Africa alone each year. In addition, for prevention of malnutrition, we need to stop the scourge of child marriage through keeping girls in secondary school and ensure that pregnant mothers have adequate nutrition and micronutrients and support agricultural productivity. For treatment, therapeutic food, or RUTF, think of it as a fortified protein bar with micronutrients, is a proven intervention for severe acute malnutrition. It's on the WHO list of essential medicines. At a cost of only $40 for the product cost for a course of treatment, it will cure severe malnutrition and save a child's life. A variation of this product, called SQLNS, is a game-changing product that recent evidence, again from the Gates Foundation, has proven that it works very effectively for children with moderate malnutrition. For a cost of treatment of only $20 of product cost, it ensures that moderate malnutrition does not develop into severe malnutrition. It needs to be deployed now. In order to motivate developing countries to address the child wasting wasting crisis and crowd in donors, the Child Nutrition Fund was created 1 year ago. The anchor partners are UNICEF, the UK government, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and CIFF. CIFF and myself personally have committed over $100 million to the fund and its precursor, of which I've personally already funded $25 million. The implementing partner for the fund is UNICEF, which has extensive and successful experience in managing these programs. For example, CIFF has partnered with UNICEF in the past on a $50 million RUTF program, helping to save the lives of more than 1 million children in Nigeria. The fund works by low-income countries submitting to UNICEF costed plans for prevention and treatment of child wasting. 23 countries have already submitted plans, and $17 million of RUTF has been mobilized in 10 countries through a dollar-for-dollar match funding mechanism. Because wherever they have capacity, low-income countries themselves must also take some of the responsibility for treating and preventing child wasting. Last year, we worked with USAID, UNICEF, the Gates Foundation, and many countries and philanthropies to mobilize over $500 million for prevention and treatment of child wasting. USAID invested $200 million of this $500 million directly to UNICEF, and much thanks is due to Sam Powers and her team at USAID for their leadership. This was a historic and critical collaboration that will certainly save millions of lives of children. But we need such funds and much more on a multi-year basis. I'm announcing today that I'm personally committing $50 million towards a target $500 million deal for new money into the Child Nutrition Fund to prevent and treat child wasting. My commitment will be contributed to the Child Nutrition Fund pro rata as commitments are funded. So I'm asking all those here today or listening who have capacity to give to come together again and repeat the amazing commitment which was made last year. I've already received a $25 million commitment from one philanthropist. In addition, I've personally committed over $100 million to build and equip facilities to manufacture RUTF and SQLNS, more than half of which has been dispersed. In closing, none of us here today would allow our own children to die of wasting. And I'm sure we would all agree that all lives have equal value. So, if we come out of our minds and out of our intellect, just for a moment, and go into our intuition and the deepest part of our souls, we all know that it is wrong to allow a child to starve to death, whatever the country they happen to have been born into. So together we can make something beautiful happen today. Thank you.
I thank Sir Chris very much indeed for that inspiring speech. I'm about to introduce the video that Bill Gates has sent, because sadly he can't be here, but we have got here today Roger, one of his presidents of the BMGF, who is very welcome and who we'll be hearing from later. But ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to hear from Bill Gates.
Hello, everyone. First, I want to thank the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, and the Government of the United Kingdom, especially Andrew Mitchell, for organizing the conference. It's great to be talking about the needs of communities who are suffering from food insecurity. Today's conflicts have shown how geopolitics can devastate supply chains for essentials like grain and fertilizer. In South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, the places that already have the highest malnutrition rates, the temperatures are rising quickly, and that's affecting the harvests of small farmers, making them less reliable. Progress in fighting hunger slowed during the pandemic, and we haven't recovered that progress. In this, as in many things, it's the poorest who suffer the most. But I'm optimistic that by using innovation, we can get back on track. Our foundation is supporting the development of ways to improve the supply of nutritious food, even in the face of climate change and other global challenges. I'm excited about all the things we're doing with seeds. For example, drought-tolerant maize that has a 66% higher yield. To complement those, we're also building digital tools that inform farmers about weather so they know when to plant. Raising agricultural productivity has many benefits. Over time, we should see poor countries, including in Africa, become net exporters. Not only will it reduce malnourishment, but the extra money will help those families be resilient and send their kids off to school. We understand now that particular foods help avoid inflammation in the child's gut by modifying the microbiome. These can be things like dense peanut paste or other locally sourced agricultural products that, by targeting to young children, allow them to achieve full growth and therefore achieve their physical and mental potential. Of course, as we come up with these innovations, they only make a difference if they're financed and scaled. I'm pleased to see the new Child Nutrition Fund, hosted by UNICEF, making progress in financing. I'm very hopeful that this conference will also help boost the prioritization of agricultural R&D, including support for the CGIAR, the organization that drives critical innovations to improve farmer productivity. Thank you again for focusing on these critical issues. I look forward to hearing about the partnerships and solutions that will come together both in this meeting and as we get together at COP28. Thank you.
So, Roger, please thank Bill very much indeed for his inspiring words. And please join me in saluting once again these two brilliant geniuses, Sir Chris and Bill, who have taken that financial genius and put rocket boosters behind it, doing something about the cause of humanity in the way they've both so eloquently described this morning. And thank you both for sponsoring today as well.